Hello, welcome to Strictly Money at the News Forum, where all voices matter. I'm Saijal Patel. A recent report from Food Banks Canada has revealed more Canadians than ever need access to food. So far this year, there have been 1.5 million visits to food banks across the country, the highest usage on record. And it underscores the severity of food insecurity in light of rising expenses. Cheryl Keddy-Scott is Executive Director at Village of Hope, and she joins me now. Cheryl, great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, these are shocking numbers, 1.5 million, and yet we probably shouldn't be shocked given that food prices are up, rent is up, gas is up, and people are having to make choices between eating and having a roof over their head.
Yeah, it's really escalated. You know, we've seen an increase over the last 5 years a little bit, but this year it's been definitely significant. We noticed it at our food bank. You know, a lot of people think compared to the city, to the country and everything else, rural versus urban, the differences, but we're all affected. We're all affected by it.
Yeah. So my understanding, Cheryl, was that visits to the food bank was typically tied to unemployment, and it was often the last resort. That's changed, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, you know, when you look at the history of food banks, you know, they began, evolving around, the Depression years and everything else. And now you look at, we're in 2022. Who would think that, I'm serving, in our West Niagara, up to 1,500 individuals a month. 72% of everybody who visits our food bank is actually working, but
Wow.
there's just not enough money at the end with, like you say, with the rising costs. And it's not even that, some of them are still making, fairly decent money, $20 an hour or that, but just with the cost of food and everything. And when you have a couple of children on top of that, it's impossible to make ends meet. So they have to visit us, which is sad.
Yeah, and I understand students, a lot more students than before.
Yeah, when they're coming to we see it, some students even living in their cars to make ends meet and that, their parents send them here and they go to, different universities. I think it's more prevalent in larger cities like Toronto and that. But yeah, it's devastating. It affects everybody. We've seen through COVID, COVID affected the rich, poor, everybody in between. And as we move beyond that, I was very optimistic thinking, wow, time to move forward. And yet we've really hit a wall with that.
Cheryl, how has rising expenses affected your food bank and also donations?
Dramatically, the people normally that would donate, 2 bags of food are now donating one. I think people are definitely a little bit more wise shopping, buying items when they're on sale and everything. But it also comes to our donors. The donors that normally would donate maybe $100 now donate the $50. And we've even seen it that some donors on occasion are now coming to sit at my desk saying, Cheryl, you know what? You've been so good to us, but we need help now. I'm laid off. My hours have been reduced. And with the rising costs going up, that now they are asking for help. So it's definitely been a full circle.
Wow. I want to highlight this because I understand that you run your food bank differently and you ask for a budget. Why?
I've been doing this for about 36, 37 years. And after about 15 years of helping people in the community and beyond, I really realized, what are we doing? We're giving out food. Yes, we're definitely affecting food insecurity and ensuring no one goes hungry. But, I started seeing families more with us for like a year or 2 years. I thought, how can we move beyond this? So about 10, 12 years ago, I said, we need to start sitting down and going a little bit deeper with people, seeing why they're coming to our food banks and what can we do to move them beyond. So that's when we introduced our budgeting. Within 3 months of registering at Village of Hope, everybody has to sit down with myself personally, whether it's at their kitchen table or whether it's at Village of Hope, and go through a little budgeting of where they're at and where do they see themselves in 6 months.
That's really interesting. I can imagine that you might get a little bit of pushback.
I do. I get it sometimes from the business community and from the clients because they're like, I have nothing. I can't budget. I have no money. But I don't believe that at all. It doesn't matter whether you're on social assistance or whether you have a good job. You should always know what's in your account, what's coming in and what's going out. And that way those emergency, disconnection notices from hydro, we can deal with before that happens, right?
Yeah, I think that's very important is have some awareness of what's coming in
Yeah.
and where it's going because I often talk about this, Cheryl, is that we are subconscious human beings
Yeah.
and we often are emotional human beings. And
Yeah.
so we have to raise that awareness of where that
Yeah.
money is going.
And I think it's really easy nowadays with tap and with visas and everything else. We
Absolutely.
really need to watch what's in our account and what's coming out.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll
Wonderful.
continue this conversation. We'll be right back.
Absolutely.
Welcome back. Cheryl, we've been talking about budgeting, and maybe you can share some of the advice that you give to the people that come to the food bank, because I think a common misconception is I don't need to do this. I just need
Mhm.
the money. And yet when you hand someone money and they don't know how to manage it, I feel like there's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we do different programs, rent subsidy, utility subsidies, and that. And people come in sometimes owing all this money, and for us to help them even with half, how are they going to come up with that half? So we want to make sure too that our donors' monies are going towards a family's home that's really going to make a difference. So working with them, we look at where they're at. Okay, where can they kind of cut back a bit? So very confidentially, we meet with them and everything else, and we say, okay. I won't mention any business names, but maybe you don't want the movie channels. Maybe you don't want this. Where can we shave it back, even for 6 months to save that? But we also really encourage them to open up an extra savings account. And I've actually physically gone with them to the bank to open it up so the bank understands what we're doing. It's so it doesn't show up on their, on their online banking or that. And just $10 every time they get there, whether it's social assistance or whether it's a pay. Some people have done it $100 every 2 weeks. And, they come to me 6 months later and say, wow, it's so nice to know that I have
Yeah.
this little bit of money for maybe a car repair or something else.
Pay
But
yourself first. That's the concept,
absolutely.
right? Because when you don't
Yeah.
see it, you don't miss it.
Yeah, and I think that I always tell people, one lady was saying her husband goes to, gets a coffee every day. That's understandably, that's fine. But I say, you know what? If you went and you bought that great bag of coffee, you made a coffee every day, at the end of the month, it's $75, $80. And that's sometimes the cost of a utility bill. So we definitely want to ensure that, our families have heat and hydro and everything. But they got to kind of meet us halfway. So yes, I will help out with rent subsidy and that, but they also have to sit down and say, okay, where can we cut back? And many times when they look at their own bank statement, they say, I can't believe I spent that much money on that. I
Yeah.
can't believe I spent that. And so after 3 months, if they can save that almost half of their budget with those miscellaneous costs, they get a $100 grocery card at our local store. So it's a real
Ah,
incentive
so
for
there's an
them too.
incentive. Yeah.
Absolutely. And many of the clients say, Cheryl, I think I'm ready to sit down and do budgeting again. And that's been so good. And one story I was telling you just prior to the show, I did budgeting with a lady last week, and now she called me yesterday and said, Cheryl, I think I'm going to have an issue in February with my rent. And I'm scared for myself and my 3 children.
So really looking ahead.
Looking ahead,
Important.
and I
Yes.
haven't seen that in the past, but now that we've almost gone through all 1,500 individuals budgeting through Village of Hope, I'm getting that feedback now, and people are so happy, and our donors are happy because they see we're not just giving out money, we're not just giving out food, but we're really impacting because everybody that comes in has their own story, and everybody has the opportunity to move forward,
Yeah.
right?
So for those watching
Yeah,
and they want to support food
yeah,
banks and they want to support Village
yeah,
of Hope, and we'll bring up your website.
yeah.
How can they help? And what do they need to know? Because I have to assume that there are often misconceptions as well.
Yeah, first of all, we are a volunteer based charity. So we have almost 108 volunteers right now, very little staff. And so when you donate $1, only 20 cents of that goes towards any admin costs, which so we're very low. We ensure that the money, when you donate towards, our budgeting program or our rent subsidy program, that money is allocated for that program. We want to make sure that the money goes in, goes out, but goes out to the people that are really making a difference. As I say earlier, 72% of our families are the working poor. So we really want to help them continue to work, but also get them beyond. And, when those people come in, down a year down the road and they donate that $100 because we help them for a short period of time, it's so satisfying, not just to myself, but to our volunteers when we see those, everybody, young or old, seniors or families or single men or anything, when they move beyond that. And that's what we're there for. So donors food, we're fortunate to have, freezers and coolers that, yes, we ask for a lot of canned food for those
Yeah,
families.
typically it's canned food, that's donated, but you need
Yeah.
fresh food, don't you?
Absolutely.
Fresh and frozen?
Potatoes, carrots, fresh or frozen. We have the opportunity and we have the space to have it. And with the large turnover of food, we'll make sure that it gets into the hands of those that need it.
Okay. Do they, I know we only have about 20
Yeah.
seconds left. Do they need to call ahead to know what type of fresh food that they would donate?
They
or-
certainly could, but anything helps. Anything from broccoli to oranges to potatoes. We'll take anything. Everybody appreciates it. So,
Okay, Cheryl, we really appreciate you coming in
yeah.
today.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you
so
so much
much
for having me.
Stay put, because when we come back, we'll talk about the state of charitable giving in Canada in light of a looming recession. Welcome back to Strictly Money. The festive season often brings out the generosity of people, but it's also a critical time for charities. Unfortunately, economic worries have had negative repercussions on many charitable organizations, especially the smaller ones. Joining me with her insights is Shannon Craig. She's Chief Marketing and Product Officer at CanadaHelps, our country's largest platform for donating and fundraising online. Shannon, great to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
You know, Shannon, I just had Cheryl Keddy-Scott from Village of Hope, which is a food bank, on to discuss how inflation has dramatically increased the need for food. It's affected donations. I'm imagining that you're experiencing something similar.
Absolutely. In fact, we wanted to really understand this. And so CanadaHelps commissioned Ipsos to do a recent poll in October. And what we're seeing from that poll is that out of 10 Canadians, so 22% of Canadians, say they plan to access charitable services to meet essential needs such as food, shelter, and clothing in the next 6 months. And that's dramatically up from a similar poll we did with Ipsos in January 2022, when that same response was just 14% of Canadians needing to access charitable services to meet basic needs.
Wow. So, Shannon, I have to think that there's a lot of some like competing attention, right? Like things like this where it's absolutely necessary. Um, we had the Ukraine conflict. So which charitable organizations are feeling it more than others?
Well, I think it's so diverse. There is such diversity in the charitable sector. And so I think, and if we start to look back, it's really been a sector under stress since the pandemic. And so there's certain organizations, arts charities, and charities doing phenomenal work supporting our communities that have actually seen a decrease in demand. And, not all of them have recovered. In fact, 2/3 of those ones that received a reduction in demand at the start of the pandemic have not yet gone back to pre-demand levels. But at the same time, those, really serving essential needs such as food banks and so forth, they've had a dramatic increase, and very few of them have gone back to pre-pandemic levels. In fact, most of them continue to increase their demand. So it really is a trying time for the sector. Where we have seen is that, many Canadians also are feeling the stress, turning to charitable services, but also with softening donations.
Yeah. So are charities also dealing with higher expenses?
Absolutely. So we did a study in the summer of smaller charities, and smaller charities in particular have the greatest impact right now. We've been seeing this prior to the pandemic, but with the pandemic, smaller charities really are struggling, to the point that 59% of small charities right now demand exceeds their capacity, and only 27% say they have sufficient capacity to meet demand.
Wow. Now I understand. I mean, they have year-end goals, if I'm correct. So there is a danger of many missing those. What's the implication if that happens?
It's really about servicing people in our communities. As we look and we see, those numbers of people needing to access for basic needs going from 14% in January up to 22% in our panel in October, that's huge demand. And, when you're working with less, it becomes very difficult and challenging decisions. They're trying to meet the demand, but they're doing so with less. And so ultimately it's service delivery.
Okay. We have just over a minute till the commercial break. Shannon, Canada Helps. It's a nonprofit organization. It's a one-stop shop for fundraising. How have you in the organization been able to help mitigate some of these challenges?
Well, because we've been around for over 20 years, helping Canadians, give to the charities they care about, all of the charities in one place, we've been really going out hard, trying to connect with them. We've been really trying to share with them what charities are facing, the challenges that they're facing, and inspiring them to give where they're able. In addition, we are behind the Giving Tuesday movement. So Giving Tuesday, it's right around the corner. It's happening this Tuesday, November 29th, a day for giving back after 2 days of commerce, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And so we really get behind this movement. We really teach small charities and all charities how to embrace it and encourage corporations and individuals, everyone to get involved, to take this day to show that giving back matters in whatever way you're able, whether that be committing to volunteer, making a donation is probably the easiest way, but also spreading the word.
Okay, and I know they can go on your site and learn about different or charities. We'll continue this conversation. We'll just take a quick break. Welcome back. Shannon, just before the break, you were talking about ways that Canadians can support charitable organizations. For those who want to donate and they're budget conscious, there are still ways that they can support causes they care about, correct? So let's run through some of the ideas and we'll bring up a board as well. Donating securities. How does that work?
Okay, so when you donate a gift to securities, you can avoid the capital gains tax. So, in addition to the federal and provincial tax credits, you avoid the capital gains tax. And so, by donating the asset rather than the cash proceeds, you can make a larger gift to the charity that you care about, as well as receive a larger tax receipt. So, it's really a fantastic way for anyone with assets that have grown in value to give back this holiday season.
Okay, and then how do charities benefit from this then?
Well, so it's really just like funding their coffers, but at Canada Helps, we offer the ability for charities to accept these gifts online. So we do all the facilitation for them, and those funds just arrive right in their bank account, and we even do all the tax receipting for the donor. And really, what it means for the charity is that because they're getting the gift of the proceeds of the sale right after it's been sold, rather than after it's the donor needs to take off those taxes, they get a larger gift
Okay,
and that larger tax receipt.
right. And then non-financial ways as well, right? There's many of those.
Absolutely. So, as well as charitable gift cards are a great stocking stuffer and a great gift alternative. In fact, 47% of Canadians say they'd prefer to receive a charitable gift over a gift like such as a bottle of wine or technology and so forth. So, that is also a great way. But non-financial ways, there's donating blood, donating clothing that you no longer need, helping your food shelter with food donations as well. There's so many ways to give back.
Have you noticed, Shannon, that people are volunteering more?
Well, I think that the sector is still recovering on that front as well. After the pandemic, many people were heavily committed. Once you break a habit, it's hard to reform. So we're still in a build back mode, I think, for many charities on that front. So volunteering is a fantastic way to get involved.
Okay. What are you hearing from charities? I mean, what would help them?
I think they love supporters. They love volunteers. There's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, at this time of year when we're under such stress with, increased demand and donations slightly softening, really, I think those financial gifts really matter at this point in time. But given in any way you can, I also think, sometimes just getting out and sharing across your network, letting people know the impact that an organization you care about is having is a fantastic way to support an organization, inspire others to support that organization as well.
Yeah. You mentioned, Shannon, Giving Tuesday. So that kicks off November 29th. Tell us about that a little bit more. And what are you hoping to see? What would success look like this year?
Right. So, Giving Tuesday is this fantastic movement. It grows every year. We have some data that suggests that 6 million Canadians participate. That's in whatever way they can, committing to volunteer, share, spreading the word, making financial gifts. My hope is that Giving Tuesday could be bigger than Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Let's make the day of generosity the biggest day of the year.
And so for viewers, they can go to your website, Canada
Yes.
Helps. And how does that work? We have about 45 seconds.
Excellent. So they can go to CanadaHelps.org. They can search for any of Canada's registered charities, get to know those charities, and then they can choose the way they want to give. One-time donations, they can make a charity gift card, send an e-card with announcing a gift to a specific charity, any of the ways that they want to give. And they can spread that through social using that hashtag GivingTuesdayCA to really help others, inspire them to participate on the day as well.
Okay, Shannon, we really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. Shannon Craig from Canada Helps. Well, that wraps up this edition of Strictly Money. And remember that it is Financial Literacy Month here in Canada. So please take this opportunity to learn about finances, whether that's budgeting or investing or even protecting your wealth. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.